when a contract is for 6 years, $5.5 million per year, I kind of have to do a video on it. And here it is. Jonathan Drouin, a year ago, hero in the playoffs for Tampa, which was good because his regular season was mired in controversy. See, Steve Yzerman felt there were certain parts of his game he needed to work on and that he could work on it in the minors. And Drouin felt that he was too good for the minors and he wanted out. So Tampa tried to trade him out, and there really wasn't a market for him then because he wasn't playing very well. And that was after a rookie season where he only scored 4 goals. This season, 53 points, 22 goals, decent totals. Apparently, one good year equals 53 or 33 million over 6 years. I don't understand. The NHL will eventually be crying about how they're losing money, and these contracts keep flying around. And I know people are going to say, well, it's because Drouin is going to be a number 1 center. But he hasn't been a number 1 center. He's still listed as a left winger on the NHL website and on hockeydatabase.com. So is Galchenyuk. Galchenyuk's only a year older than Drouin. It's just Drouin, his first year after being drafted, he was relegated to playing in the Ontario Hockey League again. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. I think Galchenyuk's a good player, and I know Montreal fans will talk about rumors of whether or not there's an attitude or there's a substance abuse or there whatever problem, and I'm not getting into that. My only thing with that has always been there are plenty of young players who have problems. There's always been young players who have problems, and that goes back to the 70s in terms of stories I've heard. You know, mid-1970s, there's Philly winning a Stanley Cup, and Reggie Leach, I think it was the night he scored 4 goals, he was drunk. Insane, falling over drunk. I'm pretty sure it was Reggie Leach in the story. Anybody can correct me in the comment section below if I've got the name wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Leach. And that's the thing. And, you know, his teammates knew he was drunk. They didn't say anything. Do I think that still happens? Probably. There's probably guys who go out and have a few drinks in the afternoon and then come in and play the game at night. Hockey is a game where if you want it, you'll find it quickly. Whether it's drugs, alcohol, or girls. Lots and lots of girls. I know a guy I worked with at a call center in Chilliwack. He told me he played a couple of games for the Chilliwack Chiefs, which is Junior B. So, it's, you know, you have your Junior A, you have your Western Hockey League, and then you have your BC Hockey League, which is Junior B. And he told me that, you know, in these couple of games he played, he said, you know, he'd come out of the dressing room, there'd be girls there just throwing themselves at him. And he's like, I barely even played. He said these girls were totally willing to do anything I wanted because I'd been with the Chiefs that night. These are, you know, these are teenage guys who are not on the NHL radar for the most part. Yeah, a Chilliwack Chief got drafted. Chlowski was drafted by Detroit last year. But for the most part, when you're into Junior B, you're into Junior B. These aren't your front end prospects. How many women do you think get thrown at these NHLers? And how good looking do you think these girls are? And then how many drugs do you think are being offered to these guys? Because they're young and they're rich. So how easy is it for these guys to get into some bad habits? And I think it's probably more prevalent than we hear. I think the guys we hear about, and this is the truth, I think when we hear about it is when the guy's an asshole. I think the guys who can hold their liquor or they're happy drunks, and I think the guys who, you know, do some drugs on the side, but when they're on the ice, they're fine. And when they're on whatever they're on, they don't offend their teammates. They don't, you know, go off the rocker. They handle it well. We don't hear about those guys. It's the guy who is a bad drunk. Maybe starts throwing punches or starts throwing objects around the bar. That's the guy you're like, oh, what a prick. And that's the guy we're hearing about. the guy who can't control it, or maybe he's got a problem, and instead of being recreational about it, it's an obsession, it's an addiction. Those are the guys we end up hearing about. I have a hard time believing that for all of the drugs that were in professional sports back in the 80s, that there's none of it now. They're clean. I know guys are more health conscious than they were. I know it's a more family-oriented sport than it was back in the 80s. But I have a hard time believing that it's out. That all of that is out. I have a hard time believing that. So if anybody wants to tell me that Montreal is bringing in Drouin, who I think Tampa wanted to get rid of him, and there was rumors about attitude with him, and now they're going to trade out Galchenyuk, which is the rumor. And if it's for personality differences in the locker room, that can be a really bad idea. Take it from a Boston fan. Take it from a Boston fan who watched Tyler Seguin go to Detroit and get his shit together. Or watched Phil Kessel get thrown out of the locker room in Boston. He went to Toronto when he got better, but the fact that we got Senga back in that deal meant that we didn't really care. But now he's gone to Pittsburgh and won 2 straight Stanley Cups. Galchenyuk's only 23. He's going to figure it out. And if Montreal trades him out and they give Drouin $5.5 million a year for 6 years after one good year, when Galchenyuk's shown more potential in terms of being a goal scorer than Drouin does, his stats seem to point to him being a setup man. And when he was drafted, the idea was Drouin was going to be the one setting up Stamkos, that it would become like a Hall & Oates kind of thing. Well, who is he passing to in Montreal? Let's say he goes to center. He's passing to Pacioretty. I see people talking smack about Pacioretty all the time. The Pacioretty in big games, he can't score. Is he passing to Shaw? Gallagher? Gallagher's stats haven't been, I think, what we necessarily expected. I mean, let's take a look at the 16-17 Montreal Canadiens. Let's take a look at what Jonathan Drouin right now has to deal with. Pacioretty had 35 goals, Radulov at 18. He had 36 assists. Now, people are saying, well, Radulov likely is probably going to hit the market. All right. Paul Byron had 22 goals. Don't be seduced by that. Byron has never shown that 20-goal ability before, and to me that feels like it's a career year, a bit of an aberration. He's 27, and the idea that he's suddenly going to be a 20-goal scorer every year, he's very competitive, he's a very good forward. I just don't see him as a 20-goal guy. Dano, 40 points, only 13 of them are goals. Andrew Shaw only had 12 goals this past season. Gallagher only had 10. Lankinen, and I like Lankinen, had 18, but he only had 10 assists, 28 points. So is Lankinen playing on the left side, and you've got Drouin playing in the middle? That might work. But then Pacioretty's getting knocked down a line for Lankinen? Because Drouin is being paid as a number 1 center. And this is where it gets tricky. So, if you're a Montreal fan, yeah, you should be happy about getting Drouin, but I just don't understand what Marc Bergevin's doing here. Because to me, it feels like he went out and he got his guy in Drouin. Now he's going to move Galchenyuk out to get another blue liner? Because that's the only thing that works here. Unless he's trading Galchenyuk out in favor of bringing in another forward. Or a forward-ended defenseman, and if you're going to do that, you're going to be taking guys who are older. I'm just trying to get a view on what the vision is here. So, Drouin is a major ad, but it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money for a guy who's had one good season, one kind of whiny season that ended up good because he came in the playoffs and played well, and a rookie year that was one to forget. So I don't know. This really could go either way. This is Bergevin's job. Between the Subban trade and now this is Bergevin's job. If this blows up in Montreal's face and they drop back this coming season, or they go out in the first round again next spring, Bergevin's done. That's it. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, especially if you're a Montreal fan. And I'm not trying to dump all over everything. I'm not trying to. I honestly am not. I don't know. You know, I think Tampa kind of got away with one here. Because that $5.5 million, if Yzerman had given that to Drouin, there's guys in his locker room that would be legit ticked off saying, wait, I took this amount of money, and he's worth that amount of money? After what you gave me, and I'm talking about Kucherov and Stamkos, there's a cap in Tampa, and it's Stamkos. And it's Hedman. And these guys are the upper crust. And for Drouin to be close to that kind of money, I don't know. To me, he hasn't shown it yet. Again, it's probably just my age. I'm used to guys getting paid after they've played well, not with the idea that they're going to be a 70-point player. The idea they're going to be a really good player. I like paying a guy that you know is already a good player. Because to me, you're just rolling the dice and you're looking at possible buyouts down the road. And then the NHL is going to talk to us in a couple years about how they're losing money. And all of these escalators have just killed their money. And, oh, poor us. And yet, at the same time, I'm yelling at the screen, you signed the damn contracts. If you don't have the money, don't sign the contracts. All right, let me know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon.